How are you doing? How are you? Good. Okay. Okay, sure. Um,
Morning, everyone. My name is Sandile. I'm the coordinator today. Thank you very much for accepting our invite at such short notice. We appreciate you here. So today we are very excited to be having this press briefing where Mr. Zungu is going to unpack the plans that he has for KZN, and he can talk about his political career and where he would like to take it. So without wasting any more of your time, I'll let Mr. Zungu unpack his vision, about a fresh approach to leading in these extremely difficult times. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Londega. Thank you, Londega. And I must welcome you all to this press briefing. To my right is Mlungisi, otherwise known as Potloza insizwa ngawisa, Potloza. We are awaiting the arrival of our chief campaign manager, Vusi Mvelase. He was just busy with something downstairs on an urgent basis. You know, we felt it was very important that we convene a press briefing, largely because, you know, the events have moved very fast, and the excitement on the ground about the fresh approach to the politics of KwaZulu-Natal and their leading during these very challenging times is so strong that some kind of an update is required. And everyone will accept, will agree with us that ours is probably an unconventional and a fresh approach, because here is a person, myself, who has been in the ANC all his life, from an age of 14, but spent the last part of the last 20 years pretty much in business, and coming back to stake his claim in the sphere of politics, what in a manner that one may call dramatic. So we felt there was a need to convene this press conference. One of the other drivers for this press conference, many people will have seen an attempt in some quarters to draw the name of Sandile Zungu into the controversies that have got absolutely nothing to do with Sandile Zungu. I can't talk for others. But before we get into the gist of what we want to talk about, we wanted to state categorically and dismiss with the contempt that such allegations really deserve. We are absolutely sure that those who are sane, those who study the politics of campaigns, will equally dismiss. Now the question is, who is Sandile Zungu, and what impressions have we made in the build-up to the conference which will be starting in the next couple of days, possible enter in the fray. In actual fact, they were encouraging, said, Sandile, what we need is you entering the political space at this time. And they said, you bring a fresh approach. And so the name Fresh came from that, became a feedback from those that were consulting, said, yours is a really fresh approach. You've got experience in business. You know how wealth gets created, not just the wealth for families, but also the wealth of nations. And your political credentials within the ANC are not questionable. We think that you'll be coming in very handy for the ANC at this time. And hence the name was born Fresh. We took a decision in February, which we made known, that we will not campaign because the campaign season had not started in earnest. It was not open. So in the ANC, it's very important to not define yourself. Moses Mabhida, to Emalahleni, Nokuhamba Nyawo in the Far North, to Mzala Nxumalo, to Musa Dlala, to General Gizenga, to eThekwini, to Joseph Mede, to Inkosi Mhlabiyalingana, Mhlabunzima. It's an overwhelming source of confidence for me as I now steer the presidential conference 2 days from now, or 3 days from now, in earnest. My own branch, which is in Ward 81, Etumlazi, has nominated me. My own branch, Etumlazi, has chosen me as a candidate for delegation to the conference. So I'm a delegate to the conference that actually espouses the confidence that my own branch has in my candidature and various branches throughout the country or the province have in my confidence. Now, I'm fully fledged in the campaign, and even those who are doubters say, are you in or out, must know emphatically, Sandile Zungu is standing position of chairperson of ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, nominated by those that have approached him. But it must be very clear, the power to elect the office bearers of the ANC lies with the delegates who will bear the conference, ultimately, as mandated by their own branches. So that power to decide who must lead the ANC is entirely theirs. Ours is just to enlighten them as we talk to them, enlighten them what we stand for, and for them to make up their minds. Ulundi, just over the weekend. And the response from the delegates who were in attendance and the response from the wards who sent representatives to the gathering, to the program, was overwhelming. And their view is that time has come. So we feel confused, we see void, we feel encouraged that the fresh approach should emerge come the conference of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. My impressions of the ANC as we crisscross the province and talking to the people and checking the readiness of the ANC to hold this conference. The ANC is alive in KwaZulu-Natal. The ANC, the rank and file of the ANC love their organization. And are concerned, the ANC will retain majority in the province come 2024 on condition to do the right thing. I am genuinely privileged to having been nominated to stand for the position. It's not something that I take for granted, not at all. And the fact that in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, there is so many candidates for pretty much all the positions. I think at the last count I heard that there were that were touted for chairpersonship of the province. At least 4 names that were emerging running for secretary of the province. And pretty much all the names have got various contenders. What does it really mean? Are clamoring for change. I don't know how else we'll interpret that. When there are candidates, they are clamoring for change. Basically, every person says, look, the things have fallen so low, I can do a better job. Things have gone so bad, what to be done? And I'm putting my hand up to can make a difference. That's what it really means. But at the same time, it says, we love this organization because everyone has an option to say, look, Dad, I'm walking away. The quality of the candidates for leadership, most of the delegates, most of the branches, and most of the ordinary members of the ANC in the province, they want to see the ANC unified. If I was given a chance to lead the ANC in the province, I can assure you that would be priority number 1, to unify the ANC in the province. There is a need for electoral reforms internally within the ANC. And everyone that I've spoken to, and in all areas that I've been visiting, I've come to a conclusion that the ordinary members of the ANC are being disempowered in choosing who should lead them. They are disempowered in as much as the basic unit of the organization are the branches. But the basic constituents of those branches are individual members of the ANC. It's very important that this matter be looked at. It's a personal view that I know has been canvassed elsewhere in other provinces, that maybe, to move away from slates, to move away from gatekeeping, to move away from ownership of branches for private individuals, that there may be a need for some kind of a system where it's 1 member, 1 vote in some form or another going forward. We believe that that will actually do a lot of good in dealing with this toxic environment of slates, with this toxic capturing of branches by powerful individuals, and with all the of money flowing around. The empowerment of individual members of the ANC within the context of electoral reforms is very, very critical. What I also found is that the biggest challenge facing the members of the ANC is, will the ANC win majority in 2024? All analysts, either optimistic about the prospects for the ANC or entirely pessimistic about the ANC, will agree on one thing, that the trend points to a massive decline for the ANC in the province. And that if we continue doing the same things the same way that we have done before, that we are destined for the opposition benches come 2024. And for a lot of us who were born in the ANC, who grew up in the ANC, we are deeply worried that the ANC, robbed of state power and therefore robbed of its capacity to deliver a better life for all South Africans using the state machinery, will be quite dangerous in our attempts, noble attempts to fight poverty, inequality, unemployment, among other ills that bedevil our society. And therefore, us as a fresh approach, and I specifically, being able to stand up, is because I recognize that I probably, as I've seen, possess part of the solutions to the problem. If I'm elected chairperson, I will not be operating on my own, even if I have very strong views about what's done, but I'll be part of a collective of the ANC leaders who must shepherd the ANC province in the positive direction. And my commitment to serving the ANC in the province and its people is unequivocal, is unwavering, irrespective of the outcomes of the conference come this weekend. Welcome, Villas. Now, at a very high level, Sandile Zungu comes from Umlazi, brand new town, Umlazi Omushasha, a massive town. I remember, those events vividly. But in 1981, apartheid and its crushing effect on the lives of people became very obvious to me when Griffiths Mxenge was brutally murdered in my township. And it so happened that Griffiths Mxenge's son was in class with me at Mafumbuga school. At the time, it was a secondary school. It's now a high school. And for the first time, having never lost a father, having never lost any of my grandparents who were all alive, and having not lost any of my members of my family, to be told, that's what an orphan looks like. It hit me very hard to see one of my fellows being condemned to being an orphan in such a dramatic fashion. And everyone would have been touched. I was touched, and I was sucked into the sphere of political activism, even as a young student at the time. When I moved to University of Cape Town to pursue my engineering degree in 1985, I became a student activist, a member and an office bearer in student structures like AZASO. At the time, we used to call it Azanian Students Organization, which was the predecessor to SANSCO, now SASCO. We were the founders of SASCO at the time, and we're the ones who resolved to migrate from the name AZASO to SASCO. Even the Students' Sports Congress, SATISCO, South African Tertiary Institutions Sports Congress, I was an office bearer, and we founded it, which became a national organization which says there cannot be normal sport in an abnormal society. When the ANC was unbanned in 1990, I became an office bearer, a secretary, as well as a political education officer in a branch called Mapita branch at Umlazi, of which my chairman was George Sithole. May his soul rest in peace. And it was at the time when it was not fashionable to be in politics, because there was deadly war between the major political rivals at the time. But I took office. Why? Because I felt I needed to make a difference in the lives of my people. That was 1990 to 1992, when I moved up to Johannesburg to pursue my professional career as an engineer. Even then, I found a branch in Johannesburg, Rivonia Heroes branch, and where I became an office bearer as the secretary of the branch. In 2001, at the time I had done my engineering stint, I was an MBA graduate, and I was asked by the government of the ANC to become chairman of DINEL, and to shepherd that organization to calmer waters as it pursued business internationally. 5 years of my time was spent in DINEL, deployed by the ANC government. Fast forward to 2009, I was on the board of the Triple BEE Advisory Council for 10 years, and helping to shape the transformative laws within the context of a legislation, BEE Act. Somewhere along the way, I was on the board of Brand South Africa. And most recently, main of my business activities, which required my hands-on approach, are here in KwaZulu-Natal, such as leading the resurgence of AmaZulu Football Club, which is a hands-on endeavor. I'm not the coach, I'm the president, call me chairperson, but I direct the affairs. And I'm quite satisfied with the delivery that we've had. And hence, my membership got transferred to Ward 81, where I was born, where I grew up. It's a deja vu. I'm back to where I started. I'm raising this because often than not, you hear people questioning your credentials. What are his credentials? So I don't need much justification. I don't need much validation. I'm very confident about my struggle credentials. What I don't have are the credentials to do the wrong things. I don't have those. If they're looking for those, I'm sorry, they won't find those credentials. But I do have strong political credentials, and I'm confident. And so I believe that I have a right to be here as a member of the ANC in good standing and meeting the requirements in all respect to be here to be available to stand for political office as nominated. Knowing that the decision ultimately does not rest with me, but it's my democratic and my duty, effectively, to be available to stand when I'm nominated. The outcomes are determined elsewhere in the conference. Now, why the fresh approach? We were absolutely devastated. I don't want to lie to you. When the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal went to conference as the largest region or province in NASREC 2017 and emerged with nothing. Why? Because disunited. And number two, they allowed the narrative of a scramble for KwaZulu-Natal to find root. Everyone was scrambling for a piece of KwaZulu-Natal for their own objectives. And KwaZulu-Natal emerged with nothing. There's not a single office bearer from KwaZulu-Natal in national government. We believe that we need justice. KwaZulu-Natal, if the fresh approach has its way, will have at least 2 national office bearers from this province come December 2024. And to the extent possible, we'll support that approach. Why? Because we believe that the growth of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal has positive implications for the ANC nationally. And when the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal does well, history will tell you that's the time that the ANC even got a two-thirds majority. When the membership of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal grows, it is time that the ANC reached the 1 million mark in terms of membership, with the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal emerging to become the largest province. So when we are forward-looking, attempting to win the support of the ANC in the province, it's because we are saying we want to restore the glory of KwaZulu-Natal within the community of the ANC. And it is our singular focus to earn the respect for KwaZulu-Natal within the community of the ANC. The need for renewal is of paramount importance. It's an existential issue for the ANC. If it cannot renew, it will die. And our approach is to commit this province to a renewal process that must be driven from the center, being the ANC. E in Fresh is about the economy. It's very sad that I woke up to the headlines. Natref refinery owned by Sasol is declaring a force majeure. In other words, it's saying to its clients, we cannot supply because of conditions beyond our control. They will not be producing and delivering the product. And that comes so soon after the demise of Sapref here in KwaZulu-Natal. It comes after the demise of Engine, triggered by a fire. It's not producing. And the Astron Energy refinery in Cape Town, or Chevron refinery, is also not in production. What kind of country is this? Where we don't have crude refining capacity, when the infrastructure is world-class, is all over, but we're not producing. Some will say, well, we committed ourselves to a clean fuels environment, and therefore we must upgrade technology. Why did we commit ourselves to a clean fuels environment when we are not ready to embrace it? See, there's nothing wrong with committing yourself to something as nice as clean fuels, because the concept is dirty fuels. But come on, let's not fall foul of narratives that are not aimed at benefiting us. Dirty coal, and therefore abandon coal. Clean fuels, and therefore move away from dirty fuels, which is crude oil refining. And we commit ourselves to technologies that we know very well we've got no capacity to influence. And the end result is this, that the refining capacity in KwaZulu-Natal is devoid of operating capacity. It's not producing. And the impact thereof is downstream industries that rely on the engine and Sapref operating are also suffering. You know, when you refine crude oil, you get paraffin, you get jet fuel, you get petrol, you get diesel, you get petroleum jelly, which you can convert to branded products like Vaseline. You get LPG gas. You get methylated spirits. You get sulfur, which you can convert to manure, so fertilizer rather. And these products I'm mentioning are just a tip of the iceberg of what is possible. Now, when you close down these refineries, what you're basically saying are a lot of tankers camping there on the shores, and you say, geez, it's full, it's busy. It's busy because they're coming to drop products where the jobs are elsewhere. And now the question that we ask ourselves as Fresh is, what is the leadership of the ANC in the province doing about it? It's been happening under their noses. When people are being on top of employment, which is sky high, you have this, production of industrial capacity in our province. Yet there's from our leadership in the ANC. You know, Transnet moved one of its headquarters from KwaZulu-Natal. I think it's Transnet Ports Authority to the coast of to Ngukha. With that, a lot of good professionals migrated. They were forced to from Durban to Eastern Cape. There's nothing wrong because we are one country. But I believe that if you are in an NEC representing your province, you must talk for your province. You can't just say, oh, seconded, they're moving headquarters from KwaZulu-Natal somewhere else and complain, because it's your people who will be affected. Youth unemployment is going to be raised in your province. And elsewhere they are saying bringing in jobs. We have a responsibility to talk for KwaZulu-Natal. We have the responsibility to have people who have a serious interest in defending the people of KwaZulu-Natal, rather than saying, I'm there because I'm aiming for a position higher, either in government or elsewhere. If you look at Moy River, the woes in Moy River, the death of Moy River Textile, you have a massive township on the other side of the N3, which largely derives from the old industry, the textile industry, Moy River Textile. A lot of things would have been tried when that thing fell apart. And it's a powder keg, that community, where if someone wants to take action against foreign truck drivers, they mobilize people there to store drones at passing traffic. And they throttle that N3, which is the main artery to our economy, especially from an import and export point of view. And what is the response of the leadership in KwaZulu-Natal to address that issue? Because when that happens, we suffer as we come home about economy. Rich Mzala Nxumalo, which have got vast tracts of land, Ingonyama Trust, and even those that are owned by private individuals. That region is ripe for processing. That region is ripe for manufacturing. It's got labor, it's got the terrain, it's got proximity to the harbor, Richards Bay, which is not only useful for coal and bulk commodity exports, it's also useful for other products. And why not take full advantage of that? If you look at the coast of KwaZulu-Natal, from closer to south of Mozambique, all the way down to the edge of Eastern Cape, that is beautiful coastline. When you talk about oceans economy, you've got to talk about that coastline. Are we taking full advantage? No, we're not. And whoever was to claim otherwise will be lying through his teeth. We are not taking full advantage of it because we are not leading for leverage on God-given endowment called this beautiful Indian Ocean of KwaZulu-Natal. So our view at Fresh is that we've got to focus on the economy, and that focus must be driven from the ANC offices. And those who are deployed in government must be accountable to the ANC office. So I account to myself, because I'm an office bearer one side, also the one who is supposed to execute the ANC mandate. And when there's need for accountability, I evade justice. Accountability is, or lack thereof, is killing the ANC. There's no accountability. So, and the ramifications for such are massive on the economy. And you see lots of thousands of people sleeping under bridges. And if you ask them, where you come from? No, I graduated at University of KZN. You know, I tried, I'm trapped. The Zungu thing is killing me. I want to exit. But exit him, where's the job? He will go back to under the bridge. We are having a generation that is wasted because we don't have strategies and we've got no responses to ills that befall them. S for social cohesion. There was once a time when the ANC was the view of everything positive about society. The churches looked up to the ANC. The ANC could go to churches and without any sense of shame because they saw the ANC as an extension of churches. Non-racialism in KwaZulu-Natal was taken for granted. Yes, history, but was taken for granted because the ANC was the center of it. All of those things, including the development of the church in KwaZulu-Natal, taken firm root. The ANC is no longer seen as the main driver and the catalyst for social cohesion. Yet social cohesion at this time is needed desperately. Fight tavern killings if the communities don't trust those that lead at municipalities or in wards. If they don't trust organizations that claim to be leaders of society. You don't want to deal with issue of wunga and copper theft and even electricity theft when you don't have an organization that says, we are the leader of society. Please listen to us. And by the way, we have earned your respect. We work very hard to re-earn the confidence and the respect of the people of KwaZulu-Natal. It's not going to be an overnight thing, because trust me, when you talk to people, they say, why are you wasting your time? This thing is gone. It's gone to the dogs. So no, not in my eyes. In my eyes, it's salvageable. And when I work very challenge, but when I work very hard to earn the trust of ordinary people again. Because remember, we're doing this with 2024 in mind. We're not contesting for the leadership just for the sake of it. We are worried, deeply worried, that come 2024, unless we change tack, unless we do things differently, ANC will be an opposition to a coalition of organizations who will say, not ANC in this coalition. We are hard followers of ANC. We've got to change that, and we're going to change that as the fresh approach. H is about humanity. When you talk to the people of the province, we don't feel the love from the ANC. We don't feel the love. We don't feel the love. There was once a when if Mama Dorothy Nyembe walks into your home because you have had a tragedy at home and dressed in ANC regalia, and you felt, I'm loved. Even when they embrace you, they say, you felt the love. Not just because there was someone hugging you, but you respected the uniform that they were wearing. You respected the organization that they came from. There was a lot of love. That love is lost. And a practical that confirms this loss of love. There were floods in this province a couple of months ago. Not a couple of days ago, not a couple of weeks ago, now a couple of months ago. And we are told that there are tens of people, 40 plus, accounted for, who are still lost, trapped somewhere in Mhoshen. Where is the ANC? Why can't the ANC as a campaigning organization say, comrades, the tragedy didn't happen in a ward, it didn't happen in a region, but please organize a bus from Musa to carry comrades to General Kizang, Tongat, Stanger, or eThekwini, Wanyuswa, to go and rescue people who are trapped in the mud there. Bring your foreshore, travel, your people, will mobilize others to come with TLBs and front-end loaders. Let's put on our overalls. Let's put on our t-shirts. These t-shirts must sweat. Go to the trench and rescue people. Even if you rescue 1, 2, allow those families who have lost their loved ones to put them to rest in dignity. We'll have showed that as an organization, we love our people. You can't just abandon your people behind enemy lines. The enemy in this case being the floods. You can't just abandon. Why? Because they're just statistics. Who are they? What are their names? Who knows? Statistics. So we have to bring the ANC back to the people. We talk about social distance. We talk precisely about that people don't feel the ANC is distant from them. They remember them when they bring t-shirts, vote for us, because we brought some nice. It's becoming simply and crudely transactional, the relationship. And you cannot build society when you take for granted the people that you lead. So with the ANC fresh, we feel very strongly that we've got to endear the ANC among the people that it leads. We feel very strongly that we can do it, and we're giving ourselves a chance to appeal to the delegates who will be at the conference to do the right thing so that the ANC can be put back on the platform where it belongs. Those are my
Thank you very much. We're now going to open the floor for questions. I'm going to hand over to Uku, and she will coordinate it.
Sanibonani, Phindile from Izinga Creatives. We're gonna take questions and then afterwards allow for interviews as per request. So you introduce yourself and you'll say which media house you're from, and then you give us your question. Let's keep it as short as possible so that we allow for everyone to get a chance to inform it as well. You introduce yourself, your media, ask a question.
Mr. Zungu, hi, Kuben Chetty, Independent Media. I just want to get your thoughts on the ANC's step-aside resolution and the amendments to the resolution. But specifically, I know you've been campaigning. What have you from the on-the-ground campaigning, and what is your opinion of the resolution as implemented? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kuben. We'll take another question before we respond.
Thank you. Sandile from Umbele. Mr. Zungu, you spoke about Uguti, you believe the ANC would win the majority in 2024 provided it does the right thing. Could you please elaborate on what the right thing is? Thank you.
All right, we'll take 2 sets of questions after we answer the first 2 so that we don't forget what we need to respond to. Mr. Zungu, over to you.
Okay. Starting with the step-aside resolution. You know, in talking to regions within the ANC, we have picked up overwhelming sense of angst, for a lack of a better word, you know, discomfort with the step-aside resolution in the manner that it is being implemented. There is an overwhelming view that it is becoming a factional instrument to deal with those that are on the wrong side of the equation. It is sadly going to suffer the same fate that the Scorpions suffered post-2007. For me, the die is cast on that resolution, simply because it is used incorrectly as a factional instrument. On the other hand, there is a need for the ANC, as part of its renewal, to operate in a manner that restores the confidence of ordinary people in the organization as a leader of society. If we emerge, we'll be very solidly for a step-aside resolution to be looked at fundamentally in a manner that allows for equity and justice to be seen as it is implemented. And it is an overwhelming view in KwaZulu-Natal that the step-aside resolution will be put to a test and it will be rejected. I've got no doubt about that. And as fresh approach we will allow thinking for a review. What is the thing that the delegates must do? The delegates have got a responsibility to look at people that are put in front of them, who for the responsibility to think about the ANC, who must lead the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. And when they think about the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, they must also think about the society and the societies that they come from. What kind of leaders they need to see as the ANC campaigns for elections come 2024. It's up to the delegates. And so the right thing is basically the right thing, to decide on the right kind of people to lead the ANC and who may be leading the charge as they crisscross the province, come to seek the renewal of a mandate to lead this province. Our belief as Fresh is that we are in the task and we are very enthusiastic about it, and we're anxious to fulfill the responsibility to lead the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal come 2024. So that's the right thing.
Thank you so much. Do we have more questions? Was your hand up first or the house?
Okay, thanks. Ketsa Sangwan from Isolezwe. Thanks for the opportunity. Mr. Zungu, we cannot shy away from the fact that in the ANC there are factions and slates, especially now that the provincial congress is looming. Now, do you belong to any faction or slate? You were seen with the different leaders of the ANC. I don't know if you're consulting or you belong to their slates. There are questions about that. And what will happen in the event that you lose? Or in the event that you win, what will happen to your businesses? Thank you.
Second question. Introduce yourself and your media house.
Igama Indlovana from Ilanga. Ngicabanga ukuthi i-question yami icishe ifana neka Good Westfalezwe. Siyazi ukuthi conference kuye kube nama slate okuye ku ngizothi asatshalaliswe enkundleni zokuxhumana kushintshwane ngawo. Khona ke engicawakele esinobuso bakho Mr. Zungu. Ngifisa nje ukuzwa ukuthi ungathini mhlambe kuleso slate khona nongaphawula mhlambe kuleso slate o associations ilokho. Thanks.
We're going to allow for Mr. Zungu to respond and then take the last two to say.
are very bad for the organization. Slates have killed the organization. They deepen factionalism. But let's face it, slates have become a new normal within the ANC. And possibly the only conference of the ANC I've not attended since the ANC was banned in 1990. The only conference I didn't attend was the NASREC conference. There were personal issues that I deal with. But all the conferences from 19 all the way to Mangaung in 2012, and some of the police conferences and National General Council meetings. I'm raising that because the issue of slates began to take terrible roots, and this wound was allowed to fester. And nothing did much about it. But it does not take anything away from the fact that slates are a bad organization. The winning slate tends to move on the basis of a winner take all. They always promise straight after the conference, they will repair the damage done by the slate. Saying that from a position of being victorious, that they can shepherd everyone back to line. But those who belong to the opposing slate, a day after the conference, they begin to hatch a plan to make this winning slate unworkable. And they begin to prepare for the next conference, which you know when it's bad for the organization. And to the extent possible, we don't promote the issue of slates. And to the extent that one has had his face feature in the slate, that slate, or the slate, or that slate, in this position or that position, and those slates have got their own architects. I don't know who those architects are. I wish I could direct you to those architects. It suffices to say that if you look at the individual comrades in those slates, they are great comrades. Even the slates that are not aligned with ours, you know, they are great comrades. They remain comrades, even as we compete for office. They will remain comrades even post that defeat come this weekend. But you cannot deny the fact that the slates don't build and foster camaraderie. They foster divisions. And we always like to discourage them. But can we do anything about them? Look, they are the products of incumbency, slates. It's the people who have been incumbents whose work and programs will determine whether the next and the forthcoming conference will also have slates which are divisive. So we'll prefer to not take accountability for what has happened. Suffices to say that if we emerge at the conference, we'll work damn hard to ensure that the issue of slates is done away at provincial conferences, regional conferences, and elsewhere. And people look at the strength and the quality of individuals who are competing for leadership. Uketa also asked about my business interests. I'm an entrepreneur. Often than not, I'm asked, you're a businessman. For those who are not scholars of, they use a bland definition, you're a businessman. I'm an entrepreneur. I build things, I grow things, they're there for everyone to see. Sometimes I succeed, which is most of times, and sometimes I don't. But I'm proud and entrepreneur. I turn around things, and you can be able to say, this is where Zungu found them, this is where it is now. And a clear example is that of Amazulu. Those who live in the province, they consider Amazulu to be either their first home or the second home. Nothing more than that. Even if they support another team, but they have a very soft spot for Amazulu. But one thing that everyone would be agreed upon is that Amazulu was going back into the bush and up into the PSL and buying a status here, and back the status in the piece. So you feel a bit of pity for Amazulu. Zungu into the ownership, that changed. In the first season, we came number 2. And very effectively in the continent, even when people thought we were points. We've built our team. We compete for the league this season. We're going to compete for a cup or 2 this season, a courtesy of our actions. Because we've recognized there's a crisis. If there's a crisis, do something about it. Don't pray about it only. Roll up your sleeves, make yourself dirty. Don't tell us about theory. What happens when organizations go wrong? What are you doing about it? We dipped into our pockets, changed coaches, gave them objectives to fulfill, and they understand clarity of our expectations. So you ask me what will happen to Amazulu. Amazulu will run. It's got directors, it's got management, it will run. My support for Amazulu, I can't disguise it, even if I try. I'm Amazulu through and through. But from a governance point of view, it's going to be quite important that I'm seen Amazulu at the expense of other teams. And I can assure everyone that if I'm elected chairperson of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, I will draw a line between Zulu and the line of the government of KwaZulu-Natal, or in eThekwini for that matter. This is very important, for example, and understand the implications. That you are not elected to office so that you can use things to your favor. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. For other businesses, they're going very well. Management, they've got their leadership team, and it's me who is the holder in those businesses. It's my family, and we'll find a way to deal with any contradictions in a manner that is beyond reproach and can be subjected to scrutiny. So I understand exactly what the implications are for my choosing at this time to explore entering the political fray. So I think that's, that answers both your question and Lovan as well.
Take the last 3 sets of questions. Ugoke, Uvelem, and then we'll close.
Okay. Okay, sharp. Okay. Angibonga kakhulu uphungula abadele news. Mr. Zungu, there was a view by some a political analyst that, by the way, so you once said that, okay, you're not interested in that comes with the political positions. The analyst said so they feel that, okay, if you can enter into a deal, either Nomsa Dube or someone else, then maybe one of you it becomes a partner, while one runs the inside. Then that view, so I want to hear from your side on that proposed arrangement? And two, you spoke about political reforms in the ANC. Maybe if you can just name one or two reforms so you want to see it being changed.
Hi, Paddy Harper, Mail and Guardian. Perhaps a practical question. To become chairperson, one needs to be on the ballot. The boxes were opened yesterday coming from the regions. How many branches have nominated thus far, and what's the spread? Maybe Mr. Mvalasi would know that better than you, as he's the campaign manager. And then secondly, you're standing as chair, as you're saying, with a view to 2024, which would be the solidifying the NC's performance and retaining control of the province, and what one would assume by implication becoming premier. How then does one balance the entrepreneurship and the political task and avoid a situation like we have with our current president? How do we avoid a patla if we vote for you? If the ANC votes for you, how does that process be properly managed? One understands you've given a broad outline, but realistically, how does that happen? How can you maintain significant business interests and at the same time play a role in government? Because surely that's part of what the problem that we have at the moment, facing both the party and the nation.
Ngiyabonga uSiphamandla Goge kwa-ENCA covered kwamaningi ama-questions including the one on nominations and boxes. You say 2017 December Nasrec conference was an injustice with ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. You say you want to restore justice and you are pushing for two candidates to become part of the national office bearers of the ANC. Who are those candidates and what positions are those two positions that you will push for if you do win? And then also on the issue of state-owned entities deployed, it did well at the time, but now it's not doing well, unable to pay salaries. ESCOM is struggling. I didn't hear you mention ESCOM, but you were very on issues of, petroleum, which is a good thing. But what is your view on struggling state-owned entities, including ESCOM and the one you used to run, which is NEL, and also the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal has been criticized in terms of its electoral performance, be it 2019 and 2011. Some people have argued that the way it has handled the issue of Washembe Nasendlunkulu contributed somehow. What is your view on the ongoing debate regarding how the ANC the matter of Washembe Nasendlunkulu? Those will be the questions for now. I guess I will come back later if and when there's an opportunity, but I'm covered.
Thank you for those questions. Bapungula, we recognize that the people who decide on who becomes premier are not provinces themselves. They submit names to the National Executive Committee. And the National Executive Committee then decides who among those names it prefers to lead the province. And so that cannot be our responsibility as a province. What is my stated wish? My stated wish is, if I'm elected chairman of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, that I focus on rebuilding the organization and dealing with all the issues I've highlighted around economic policy, social distance, social cohesion, among others. And have someone has got stomach, probably energy, probably experience in leading in government to assume that role of premier. I'm not looking for an executive position within the terrain of that comes with being chairman of the ANC. I'm not. And if I had my way, if I'm elected chairperson, my name will not even be among those taken up to NEC. Just to make sure that there's no doubt as, oh no, maybe you said you're number 3, but then you made sure that they choose the candidate. I would prefer not to have him in the slate. Again, because it talks to accountability. You cannot, one of the issues that I am an outcome of Polokwane conference was this thing of 2 centers of power. If you are president of the country or of the ANC, therefore you become president of the country. If you are chairman of the ANC in the province, therefore expected to be a premier candidate. Notwithstanding that ultimately the NEC decides, but there's so much weight and pressure put on the NEC to confirm the chairman as a premier because they won't allow center power. But I prefer the latter, where you are elected chairperson of the ANC, help to build these structures of the ANC, and crisscross the province and ensuring there's accountability by municipal managers or mayors in particular to the organization, and ensuring that culture of accountability finds deep roots. Because people don't account because they expect to account to themselves. They're leading the charge around matters of accountability. So I'm quite clear that given a chance, someone else will play of premier. Again, that's not my decision. It's the decision of the ANC ultimately. Now, there are many areas that need reform within the ANC. One of them, like I said, is the issue of empowering the individual members of the ANC to have almost like a direct say on who will lead them, and allowing them to have the opportunity to interrogate those who want to lead them as they visit them, to outline what their visions are for regions, for provinces, even for national. Again, because the by powerful individuals has taken divisive, and it's destroying the fiber and the fabric of the ANC who once knew the ANC. There are many other areas of reform. That's why the ANC has got a policy conference, which takes place over a number of days. Paddy, we are a campaign team that is trying to pay attention to detail. We know the threshold to have your name in the ballot. We are confident we have met the threshold. We know the threshold that you need to have your name rise from the floor. And therefore, we're aware of, having people in the ballot means nothing. Because if people on the floor are determined, they can decide to move one way or the other. But we've done those numbers, and we're quite confident that we are in shape vis-a-vis the forthcoming conference. I think the issue of business, I'm one person who runs his business ethically. You know, when I was chairman of Dinel for 5 years, I never did R1 worth of business with Dinel. I didn't even encourage people that were close to me, friends or family, to do business with Dinel. If they did, good luck to them. You know, but it was not because of my facilitation. To the extent that even when I left Dinel, my cooling off period was in perpetuity. I can tell you now, I've never done business with ever since I left Dinel. So, why? Because I was appointed to help the country, to shape its organization, to put it on the right footing. And during my time, it was the heydays of Dinel. But it takes 1 month to destroy what was built over decades. What we are seeing at Dinel today and other state enterprises is a far cry from what I got accustomed to during my time as chairman of Dinel. Things have changed, including ESCOM, including Transnet. But when we talk about Transnet, let's be very frank. When Transnet is unable to deliver because the copper cables have been stolen, it does not talk necessarily to Transnet. It may talk to Transnet for other considerations. But it's a societal issue. How do we live? Do we live with scoundrels who in the middle of the night go and cut copper cables to sell to scrap metal dealers for a pittance, and you frustrate and sabotage the whole economy? So in as much as we have to say, look at the state-owned enterprises that are collapsing, we have to ask the same question: where is that leader of society which claims to have a presence in every corner, nook and cranny of the country? What role is it playing? And it is my expectation that in KwaZulu-Natal, we have to take the charge and lead and ensure that those who transport cargo, KwaZulu-Natal line, they're safe. Those who transport cargo by road on the KwaZulu-Natal line, they are safe. Not because we've emasculated and rough-handled the people, because we've engaged with the people to understand the impact of what they do on the national economy and interest long-term. You know, I'm not here about state enterprises, but the state of state-owned enterprises is a sad state. It's a sad state. It goes from Dinel to Transnet to ESCOM to PRASA to you name it. None of them escapes that categorization. It's sad state. But something ought to be done. We can't give up on our country. And so when we're concerned about the state of the ANC in the province, it's because we are concerned about the state of the ANC nationally. It's because we are concerned about what needs to be done to get our economy back on the right footing. On the positions that we need to push for, we have not resolved. We have not resolved. Very honestly, we hear someone wants this position. Someone is talking to this region so that it carries that vote come the December conference. For KwaZulu-Natal as a voting fodder is quite deep. And KwaZulu-Natal needs to establish what it doesn't want. And you can do so if you've got people who are single-minded and are focused on what we want for KZN and who are open to being persuaded. This is what we're putting to the table. And that for horse trading has not even started. We're still going to our own conference to decide who will be in charge of those horse trading activities anyway. The relationship between the ANC and the royalty in KwaZulu-Natal, I would describe it as at an all-time low. And remember, this is an organization which among us was founded by the royalty. When the ANC was founded in 1912, Solomon, Baba Solomon, Isilu Solomon, Dinuzulu, became an honorary office bearer of the ANC. Not just him, but others as well. Over the years, the proximity of the royalty, not just the Zulu royalty, but other clans as well, to the ANC has been quite strong. And even during the days when there was a wedge driven between the ANC and the royalty, the remnants of that fraternity were able to create the thawing of relationships when the time was right. It's only now that the royalty of KwaZulu-Natal, the Zulu royalty, is expressing a view that maybe the ANC, not just provincially, but national as well, has not played as constructive a role as it ought to play, especially during this time of the crisis in the Zulu monarchy. You know, we're not here to point fingers. We are convinced that things could have been done differently. But all we know is that it's happening very soon, or very close to the 2024 elections, unless something is done to repair the memories of people who owe their allegiance to the royalty, maybe too fresh, to inform them what choices to make. There's no question about it. And the same goes for Ibandla Lama Nazareth. They even marched a few days or weeks prior to local government elections. And they even dared the ANC, will meet you at the ballot. As to what impact they had on the outcomes, all we know is that the ANC is hanging on to the governance of eThekwini through a coalition. We know that they've lost control of many municipalities. There are regions within the ANC where the ANC is not in governance at all. And we expect that its posture towards the biggest church among our people, Ibandla Lama Nazareth, and its posture towards the Zulu royalty has got something to do with it. Our responsibility as a leader of society is not kowtowed to peculiar interests, but to ensure that we bring dignity to engagements and we bring fairness and equity to dispute resolution, as opposed to fanning flames of fire, as we have done in recent past. And we at Fresh believe very strongly that we need to change tact. Otherwise, like I said, we may as well just kiss goodbye to what we have, which we treasure.
Okay, in closing, we've got media that is connected online. So we've got a question from the Sunday Times.
Zimasa Batiwane from the Sunday Times has a question for you. It goes like this. Mr. Zungu has been associating himself with tainted characters such as Sandile Gumede. Was this deliberate? Despite his political credentials, he has alluded which didn't look like they needed an association with anyone to contest for political office.
We'll allow Mr. Zungu to respond in closing. And can we please make sure that we fill out the register so that we are able to send you the press release once we're done?
Our view is, as we march towards the conference, that we'll come across all sorts of interests that will strengthen our cause, and will come across all sorts of interests that need to be taken care of as we build a coalition towards the ownership of victory in the province. And there's no question about it that if you go to the South Coast, there will be people who talk ill of people in that space. If you go to Emalahleni, you'll find people who talk ill of people who are prominent characters in that space. Just as much as you'll find people who talk ill of people in eThekwini. Why? Because eThekwini is often than not in the spotlight. Everything that happens at eThekwini becomes like headline news. And it is therefore no wonder that when the name Zungu is mentioned, there are many adjectives such as the Times is using, which I'll not repeat. And that's their opinion. And all we know is that, she's going through a legal process whose outcome at this stage cannot be predicted by ourselves. To the extent that she is chairman of the ANC in eThekwini, it talks volumes about the proximity of her followers or of the branches or of the delegates or members of the ANC in eThekwini. Talks volumes. And it's not for us to interpret that. I know Comrade Sandile at a personal level, as much as I know a whole lot of other characters who have been to trial and back, found guilty, not guilty. What I found with her is that she oozes a lot of personal warmth. And that's what makes her very appealing to a lot of people who call her Mama Sandile. That title is not used to everyone. Generally, people are called comrade. But once you're called Mama, I suppose, when people are close to you, they feel the warmth. And it's something of a revelation that people like Sunday Times need to understand when they go to the ground. That the impressions of ordinary members of the ANC is different to what they write.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zungu, and thank you to everyone else that has honored us and joined us today. As Prue has said, please make sure that your details are taken priority so that you can send your questions.